Very good evening. Welcome to the programme. We've got a big Blades guest for you this evening. Just one or two might not have heard this guy's name, but believe me, he's a hugely important cog in the Sheffield United machine, and we all know what the Sheffield United machine is doing this season. I'll introduce him in a moment. First, grateful thanks, many thanks for the huge number of messages, very kind messages that we've had here at Sheffield Live, that I've had, that James Gregg will be on in the second half of the show, have had in response to Carlos Carvalhal's visit last week, and a special thank you to Carlos as well for making it such a special show and a really entertaining one. Somebody has got to follow Carlos. Unfortunately, it's poor old Paul Mitchell. Now, but let me tell you, Paul Mitchell is one of the most respected men, and I'm not bullying anybody here or him, in local football. You talk to anybody, they know this guy because he does the rounds, he knows the game, and I haven't heard a bad word said about you. Paul is what we used to call the chief scout, I think, at Sheffield United.
Yeah, that's correct.
Unfortunately, we don't call them chief scouts anymore, so I'm going to have to waste a few seconds of time by calling you Head of Recruitment and Development, to give you your full title. Just explain the role, first of all, for us, if you would.
Well, just as it says, you know, head of recruitment from the top down. Obviously, we've got an academy. We have an head of recruitment, the head of the academy, Steve Holmes, who I work closely with. He works from 16, all the way down from 16, but up to 18. And obviously, the role includes, obviously, development players from 16 up to 21s, the under-23s, 90s, and the first team players involved in identifying targets who we might sign, but also analysing opposition, you know, the opposition teams who we're about to play. But I say it's not just me, you just head it up, you know, there's a team of us.
And how many of you?
Well, there's two analysts work with me, Mikey Allen, who's been there about 15 years or so. He can see a manager off, by the way. I think he's allergic to him. And Josh Farrer, who's worked here a good few years, real excellent at the jobs. And we work together on a day-to-day basis. But together with Carl Schreiber, Steve Bettis, Chris Wilder, manager, and Alan Hill. You know, it's a collective, especially where players are concerned, signings are concerned. It's a joint decision and a collective view on it all. It's
a big job. We'll talk about your background a little bit later in the show. For those who don't know, Paul was a respected, long-serving non-league manager. He worked for Gainsborough Trinity, for Worksop Town and Alfreton Town as well. You're manager of all of those. You had 6 years at Chesterfield, for which I'm grateful because you brought any number of players in that turn out to be really good signings from non-league football, particularly there. Yeah,
that's right. There's a lot of gems in non-league. And I think Football League clubs are beginning to recognise that now, you know, that they are out there. And obviously the big examples is Sheffield's own Jamie Vardy.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, that sent tongues wagging. I think Wenger's just signed a guy from Exeter, Cohen Bramwell, straight in to train with first team. You know, it's not a big ask really at times, especially in the lower leagues. Obviously when I worked at Chesterfield, we're League 1, League 2, based around League 1, League 2. A club who haven't got really unbelievable, massive expectations, so it's easier to bed a player of that type into those sorts of clubs.
Well, the type of deal you referred to there used to happen quite frequently many years ago when you and I were a bit younger. Do you think that sort of deal is coming back, where the bigger clubs are coming alive because of Vardy to these gems that you talk about lower down?
Yeah, I think you know, a lot of lads get lost in the system. And they get released at 16 and 18, and it's they're making the step, the jump, you know, the 18 to 21, 22 went to the 2022, and a lot of lads have come through all the system, had the right good coaching and everything, and then they've had to sort of like go out the league for whatever reason. You know, maybe they might have a great player in front of them a year older, a great player below them a year younger, or financially the clubs can't afford to keep them all. And then they go out into non-league, get a good grounding, and they get to that age where they've grown up a little bit more, go a bit bigger, a bit stronger, and it's the lads who come back in. I think very few players now where you actually go what I call, he's been an absolute total non-league player, and he's come from non-league into the game. They've all, majority of the players have gone through the academy system.
Been discarded, but can come back.
Yeah, discarded, like I said, for whatever reason. I'm a big believer. People say, oh, they've had a kick up backside and now they've realised what they've lost and now they come back into it. I don't agree with that, because I think the lads who get discarded because they needed a kick up backside or whatever, or probably weren't towing the line or haven't got the right attitude, I don't think they ever come back into it. I think it shows a lot of character for a lad to get released at a Football League club, go into non-league, keep his standards, you know, on and off the pitch, because he's not training full time, look after himself, keep his standards, and then come back into it again. And I think it takes a lot of character, and it's normally those lads who do that.
Let's talk specifically about your role at Sheffield United. As we say, it looks a big job, and you were recruited by Chris Wilder last summer, and I know he placed great store in signing you. And then you've been very busy. I'm trying to think, how many players have Sheffield United signed since then? A dozen or so since you came in the door?
Yeah.
Now, how instrumental have you been in those signings?
Well, basically it's a collective decision. You know, as I said, we all work together. We all identify the targets. I mean, early on in the season, obviously we had to work quickly. So it was based on I would say myself, Chris, and Alan's knowledge at players in you know, we thought we could get for Sheffield United, who were the better players probably in the League One and League Two, which we've all got very good knowledge of. So it was a collective decision. But even just, you know, obviously we signed Samir Carruthers on a permanent. That again, that's born out of like watching Sammy a lot from like 17, 18 when he was at Aston Villa, and watching him at MK Dons. And the player reports that's been gathered about Samir over the years, together with the reports that we've had done from the start of the season, and it's a collective decision on him.
So a signing like that, the planning for that, may date back years, you say?
Yeah, well, obviously when he first started at Arsenal actually, but he came into Aston Villa under 18s, played through the 18s, was early into the under 21s as it were then, and he had a loan spell obviously at MK, then went back and then signed for MK.
You've got this encyclopedic knowledge of so many of these players, and that you're looking for that player that fits that circumstance, are you?
Plus, like, you know, we all have databases now, especially the top clubs have databases. So there's a database at Sheffield United where the reports on Samir that other people had done as well, even early on in his career, were very good. And then we've watched him extensively then since the start of the season. We all watched him extensively, Alan, myself, Chris. So you pretty much try to tick all the boxes we possibly can to try and get it right, do all the right due diligence on them. You know what I mean? Especially characters and off the pitch, what they're like on and off the pitch. A lot of time and effort goes into it. Yeah, you know, because everything's a gamble. Every signing's a gamble, really. You could.
Well, this window, I mean, you've been busy this window. Joe Riley's come in from Manchester United on loan midfielder or defender. Ethan Ebanks, Blake as well. Daniel Lafferty.
Ebanks Landell.
Ebanks, yes.
Yeah,
what did I say?
Chesterfield here, Alan.
What did I say? Ebanks Blake?
Yeah, you did, yeah.
There we are. That was a mistake waiting to happen. It's amazing. I haven't done that one before, but thank you for pointing it out. Ethan Ebanks Landell.
Let's call him Eel.
Eagle, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that'll do. So you're not going to give away trade secrets. It would be very naive of me to ask who Chris Wilder, through you, is looking at right now. But a couple more are in the pipeline. We understand or think.
Yeah, I think you know we probably look to try and get a couple more in, ongoing at the minute. But like we said, really from the start, if we can't get what we want, what we think is going to fit the model that's been created, then we won't move at all. Because we've got a good set of lads, they're a real good group, great on and off the pitch. They've done really well for the club so far, and we only want to enhance the group. If we can't do that, then we won't move.
What happens at this point? So if you're looking at a couple of positions, which I assume Chris is, he'll have a list of several possibles for those positions. Yeah, am I right?
That's right. Yeah.
So this weekend you're going to Sheffield United playing at home to Gillingham. You'll be out and about. Will your job this weekend be to go and track one of those particular players who's on that list now?
Possibly, yeah.
Watch out for him. You know what he looks like now. Just watch out for him.
Yeah,
you'll have to get used to the sky.
You just. I mean, when I first started out in this game, people were saying like, "Oh, you can overwatch players and things like that." And I understand exactly what they mean. If you think, "Oh, somebody's a real good player," and you go and watch him, and then you watch him a third and a fourth time, and you're probably waiting for him to make a mistake to think, "Oh, he's not what he were." I disagree with that totally, because I think the more you watch him, the more you find out their level of consistency. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's over 46 games.
Yes.
They're all going to have bad periods. Even your top players, you know, Ronaldo were criticised heavily back end of last season because he had a bit of lull in form. So they're all going to have that. But you need to know how many times they're going to bring their A game to the table as opposed to the B game. So you've got to watch them extensively and keep watching and watching and watching. So you're always out and about watching everybody and flagging everybody up all the time. But yeah, even when we've got a set target and maybe nearly quite closely over the line, we're still watching and watching and watching.
Hoping not to be put off to see anything.
Well, now I think once
you've decided, yeah.
I mean, Chris doesn't dither on things. He doesn't dither on things. You know, if he when he decides on something, that you know, that's what we're doing. That's what we're going with.
Does he take your word or insist on having a look himself?
Not always insist on having him look himself, but he's very knowledgeable. He knows anyway.
Yeah.
He knows anyway. You know what I mean? If he hasn't seen him personally live, he knows a lot about him. Might have seen him on TV or whatever, and he's seen the clips. And we all software and everything we've got now, you can sit for hours watching these players, albeit on a massive TV screen. And obviously, there's nothing like live because you really don't get to grips how fast they run in, how quick the game's going. Really, you know,
you've got to see them.
Is it windy? Is the pitch sloping? He don't really tell you all that sort of thing. So, and he only basically shows you where the ball is. Yeah. So you got to see him live as well. Like, but as I say, he's got top knowledge on a lot of these players.
Tell us about what this guy's like to work for then, Chris Wilder. You've worked for a lot of managers, okay? So what's he like?
Oof, how can I say? Well, upsetting people. I obviously worked under. I've seen a lot of managers coach before. You know, I used to go to all these coaching evenings. You know, people like Steve McLaren, Steve Round, and all like that, post show on and that. They're all very good. And then I worked for John Sheridan, Tommy Wright, Paul Cook, Dean Saunders, Danny Wilson. And I think when we were 5 years at Chesterfield, I think we won 2 championships, second division twice, went to Wembley twice, won it once. And we got in the playoffs in League One with Paul Cook. We did have a relegation. I had to have that in Millerit. Yeah. So obviously that success rate says they were all very good. But I have to say, I think Chris is way ahead at any of them other blokes I work for.
Way ahead?
And they were very good, way ahead.
You say way ahead?
I think way ahead, yeah.
Why?
Definitely. Everything, his attention to detail, his planning, he's 24/7, his work ethics second to none. He's and all the others work really hard as well. But I mean, he is 24/7. He's planning, and people don't see the work that goes into actually trying to put a performance on a Saturday. You're actually planning, watching the opposition. I know everybody does it. You know, the strengths and weaknesses. All the others I have done, but he's really fine tunes it and then takes it all onto training pitch. And they work, not just training sessions. They work to try and beat that opposition. And they might have to tweak something in our performance to suit trying to beat that opposition or not get beaten by that opposition. And I think everything from top to bottom is spot on. And it's not an act with Chris either. You know, I've always studied managers. I've always read all the books and all the biographies and all that such stuff. But for me, you were born to manage. You were born to lead. He delegates really well. He delegates jobs really well, but he gives you, really good direction on what he expects from everybody in the staff. But he opens things up to debate as well. You know, you can throw your ideas forward. That's everybody that who's on the management staff. You know, the physio, the master. He's really good like that. He listens to opinions and debates, and then decides on what he wants to do. But I think I think Sam Allardyce said it some years ago, didn't he? If his name was Sam Allardyce, he'd get a top job. I think with a bit of luck, you need a bit of luck. I think he could really go all the way. I really do. I think the only thing holding him back could be that he is British. And they don't seem to get these top jobs.
Well, let's hope Sheffield United's a top job, but let's hope we're not talking about a top job in any time in the near future. Because I wrote a column about this week. Anybody who thinks that Chris Wilder is not going to get admiring glances is living in cloud cuckoo land, really. Exactly.
That's what I think. You know what I mean? You've got to do, because if you look at his win percentage over the last calendar years, it's been well documented. That's not just with one club, which you can be probably achieved. That's with 2 clubs, and that's from a club who's, albeit Sheffield United has been dawdling on being half all right in the last 6 years they've been in the division, to come in and just as we are now, and by no means am I saying we've won anything because we haven't, and he wouldn't allow that either. Like I say, he's day by day, you know, match to match. Yeah. But as I say, I think to do that with 2 clubs, if he was doing that somewhere in Spain, at a lower league, it'd be one of these managers turning up at one of these top jobs like a Watford and that. We're not really heard on that much. I'm not being disrespectful here at all, because I think he's done a really good job. But when Carlos Cavalier turned up, nobody really knew who he were. No. We probably thought he was an ex-centre-half at Chelsea's dad or something, because he were Portuguese. I don't know, but what I'm saying is, if you know, Chris's track record is far better than Carlos's track record, and he came into a big club. Well,
there's a difference in background. Carlos works in Europe. He will tell you that, you know, managers are just rotated,
it's
a bit like players are in squads.
It's a different culture.
And it's a normal situation. Yeah. But it is quite remarkable that Chris Wilder's worked as a manager for 15 years, and he hasn't once been sacked. Now, the sack is, to quote a cliche, part and parcel of any manager's life and career. Yeah. For that not to have happened is amazing. I'm not saying amazing because he's obviously deserved not to be, but
having worked with him now, I can understand why. Because I think when you see sometimes a manager get sacked quite quickly or whatever, or don't get a lot of time, that normally says to me that the people within the club, like the staff, the directors, the chairman, and everybody, they see that things aren't really quite happening the right way. They're not going in the right way. They're never going to become right because they're not doing the right things. Whereas Chris, he's had down times, you know. I think you say himself, he's had down times, but obviously the people who he's working for and the people he's working with are seeing that he's going the right way, and that's why and then gradually it's come good, and that's why he's not being sacked.
His man management and relationships are clearly extremely good in the way that he deals with people, and people inside a club can see when those relationships break down. So he's obviously managed to maintain those in bad times as well as good. Is that part of it?
Right, I'll tell you. Where he was at his very best is we didn't start the season particularly well.
Right.
And we, as staff, we weren't particularly that shocked because we got a lot of new players in. It was a new style of play. He wanted to play with a lot of energy and press from the front. So the players we inherited had not been used to that sort of football, the way of playing that style. And the players we brought in had to knit with the others. So we weren't totally shocked. That's where we were at his best. Yeah. He never ever stopped doing what he thinks is right. Yeah. And he never flinched, he never sort of panicked or anything like that because it weren't going particularly well at the start. He carried on exactly the same way. You know what I mean? I remember one day he come in and, you know, you go into the football club and I think we'd lost, maybe Southend, and you know, everybody's sort of like a bit, you're just naturally down anyway as yourself. You know, I remember him walking in saying, "Come on, why aren't telly's on? Why aren't telly's on? Get telly's on, no, what's going to change here?"
Yeah.
And he's carried on exactly the same way, worked a bit harder, he's just going to get better at what we do, and it'll click. And that's when he was at his very best, and that's when I said to myself, this guy's good.
And that, you can find that out in a little bit of a trough more than you can on a peak.
More than you can in a peak. But as I say,
and
he didn't get carried away then, and he ain't getting carried away now. He's not one of them.
He's maintained a level, but I can't see anything other than promotion for Sheffield United.
I hope so.
Yeah, you're not tempting fate beyond that.
No, because as I say, I think we're all the same. I think everybody in football knows that you never know what's around the corner. Yeah. But you just hope that if you work hard and you stick at it, and you do the right things, that you know you'll get your just rewards at the end of it.
More from Paul Mitchell, believe it or not, that's 20 minutes in the first half goal. Yeah, more from Paul Mitchell on the Blades, home to Gillingham this weekend. The Owls away at Brighton, that's a top game in the Championship in Part 2 in about 5 minutes time. What else? James Gregg will round up everything else. We'll talk to you more about the role of whatever I said it was at the title, Chief Scout. I'm going to go to that because I can't remember the other title. But also this guy, Paul Mitchell. I mean, it's not unknown for you to get offered league managers' jobs, is it? We won't. No names, no pack drill, but it can happen.
Are you in a bit of a no here, Alan?
Well,
no, it's not unknown. It's not unknown, but it's not. It's not something that happens regularly, but it's not.
No, and it can do. Oh, and by the way, in the second part as well, Lincoln City against Ipswich. Wow, what a performance by Lincoln, terrible by Ipswich. See you in 5 minutes. See you then.